A group of protesters have attacked police with petrol bombs during a dissident Republican parade in Derry in Northern Ireland on the 25th anniversary of the Good Friday Agreement. The Prime Minister is urging political leaders to resume power sharing at Stormont ahead of US President Joe Biden's visit tomorrow. Well, to talk about those turbulent times, I'm joined by the journalist and broadcaster Peter Taylor, whose new book, Operation Chiffon, describes the top-secret intelligence operation which led to peace in Northern Ireland. Peter Taylor, thanks so much for talking to us today. Very briefly, if you would, it's 25 years ago. You were there waiting. Give us a sense of what that was like.
It was a very long night. And we were in a press tent that was freezing cold, and I remember trying to sleep on the hard floor. In the end, I retired to a chair. But it was a knife edge. Nobody knew what was going to happen on the morrow, whether there was going to be an agreement or not. And it all depended in the end, not on Gerry Adams and Martin McGuinness, who were pretty relaxed when I talked to them the morning afterwards, but on David Trimble of the Unionists. And was David Trimble going to sign up? If Trimble signed up, there was a deal. If David Trimble didn't sign up, there was no deal. I
mean, it was all about the politicians, superficially, at that point, but you've been piecing together over years what was being done behind the scenes by the intelligence community. Tell us what you can about the role they played in getting to the peace.
That was absolutely crucial, and in fact it goes way back to the early 1970s when I first started covering the conflict. It culminated in Operation Chiffon, which is the title of the book, whose aim, and that was the MI5 operation, whose aim was twofold. One, to get the IRA to stop killing people, and secondly, to take part in talks. The only way that the government, or MI5, through MI5, could find out what the chances were of a ceasefire and the chances were of some kind of eventual solution to the conflict was by talking down the so-called back channel, which was a top secret channel between the British government in the form of MI5 and the IRA in the form of Martin McGuinness.
I mean, hard to overstate how dangerous that work must have been.
It was incredibly dangerous, and I think the people, the MI5 officers, beginning with Michael Oatley way back in the 1970s, and latterly with the MI5 agent whom I finally managed to trace and interview, Robert, was absolutely critical. And they took great risks, and they took risks to try and push the peace process forward. I think what's really important to recognise is that without the ceasefire, which was the point of Operation Chiffon, there would have been no Good Friday Agreement, because no government could negotiate unless the violence stopped, and the only way to stop the violence was by talking indirectly and covertly to the IRA, and also on the other side to the Loyalists, because the Loyalists had to declare a ceasefire too. And that was the great triumph, and it took years and years and years. In fact, it took roughly 25 years almost to get the ceasefire, and MI5 and prior to that, MI6 were critical in that process.
I mean, getting the agreement done seemed inconceivable at the time, as you say. Even in those last hours, no one was quite sure that they'd get it over the line. It seemed absolutely unthinkable, and yet a peace was achieved. Today, the politicians remain unable, it seems, to keep the devolved government going. Do you make any comparisons between those two moments?
Yes, I think there were various impasses during the negotiations that led up to Good Friday. Remember, Ian Paisley, the militant unionist, would not take part in Good Friday. He was a bloc at that stage. But I think the bloc at this particular moment is not all politicians. The blockage is with the DUP, who are refusing to re-enter Stormont, without which there cannot be a power-sharing executive. And I'm surprised the DUP haven't yet signed up to the Windsor Protocol, the Windsor Framework, because in the end it's in their interest to do so. If they don't, they will be seen as the wreckers. I think probably what's happening is that they've got an eye on the upcoming local elections, and I think they're probably hoping to radicalise their base to get them to support the DUP, and in the end, hopefully, although I think it's unlikely, to get the body of their electorate to re-elect a majority.
Peter Taylor, so sorry to cut you off. Thank you so much for talking to us today.